By week 3, panic is a luxury you can no longer afford. Panic is loud, panic is erratic, and in this new ecosystem, panic is simply a dinner bell. If you are still running on adrenaline, treating this like a horror movie where you scream and run, you are statistically already dead. The survivors who make it past the 20-day mark are the ones who stop running and start studying. You need to undergo a fundamental psychological shift. You are no longer prey fleeing a predator. You are a field researcher observing an invasive species. I want you to picture a battered notebook. This is now your most valuable weapon. Not your rifle, not your stockpile of beans, but the data you collect on how these things operate. We are going to build your zombie science log. We are going to map their behaviour, dissect their sensory limitations, and understand the physics of the undead. Why? Because you cannot fight a phenomenon you do not understand. And if you refuse to learn their rules, you are just waiting for the variable that kills your family. Most people treat the apocalypse like a sprint. They burn their calories, their ammo, and their emotional reserves in the first fortnight. You cannot afford that luxury. Look at the data. You are likely malnourished, sleep-deprived, and traumatized. You cannot outrun a creature that does not feel fatigue. So, you stop running. You start watching. You find a vantage point, a second-story window with a fire escape perhaps, and you open a notebook. This is your zombie science log. It sounds absurd to apply the scientific method when the world is burning, but this log is the only shield you have left. You need to chart their senses, their decay rates, and their swarm mechanics. You need to understand that the thing outside your door isn't a villain from a movie. It is a biological machine responding to stimuli. We are going to build that log today, analysing the 3 primary vectors of detection: sound, sight, and smell. Before we dissect the anatomy of the infected, we need to address the variable of your own preparedness. Information is weightless, but gear is not. If you want to survive the winter that follows this collapse, you need to secure your spot in the hierarchy of the living now. The systems we rely on are gone. Subscribe to the curriculum. We are building a database of survivors who understand that knowledge is the only currency that doesn't inflate. Secure your spot. Now, let's open the log to page 1. Acoustics. Imagine this scenario. It is dusk. You are scavenging a pharmacy for antibiotics because your partner has a fever that won't break. The street is empty. You think you are safe. Then your hand slips. A metal can of formula hits the tile floor. Clang. In the old world, that sound was an annoyance. In week 3, it is a dinner bell. You freeze. Outside, the ambient shuffle changes rhythm. Heads snap up. Bodies that were aimlessly drifting suddenly orient toward your coordinate. This is the acoustic gravity well. Sound in a dead city travels differently. Without the hum of traffic or HVAC systems, a dropped can echoes like a gunshot. You have just created an epicenter, and every infected vector within a 3-block radius is now moving toward you with mathematical precision. The common error here is the panic response. Survivors hear the infected approach, so they run. Running creates footfalls. Footfalls create more noise. A single zombie moans in agitation, which triggers the dormant ones in the alleyways, creating a cascade effect. We call this the feedback loop. By panicking, you amplify the signal. You need to understand that their hearing is likely not supernatural, but their processing is singular. They have no distraction. They filter out wind and rain, tuning exclusively into the frequencies of human clumsiness, shouts, metal on pavement, gunshots. If you trigger a sound event, you don't just alert the zombies you see, you pull the ones you don't see out of the woodwork. You aren't just fighting a monster, you are fighting physics. Now, the skeptics among you might ask a valid question. If they are drawn to sound, why didn't the National Guard just set up massive sirens to lure them into kill zones and wipe them out? It's a reasonable hypothesis. Ideally, sound lures would work. But consider the scale. In a metropolitan area of 4 million people, creating a sound lure large enough to draw them all creates a density of bodies that modern munitions cannot process fast enough. The military tried this. The piles of bodies became physical ramparts that the rearguard climbed over. The lure worked too well. The system collapsed under the sheer mass of the biological waste. Furthermore, in an urban canyon, sound bounces. Zombies in a subway tunnel won't hear a siren 3 miles away, but they will hear you coughing on the platform. The macro solution failed. You are left with the micro reality. So, how do we adapt? We test the hypothesis. You toss a rock into a distant car window. Watch the swarm pivot. Use their biology against them. But more importantly, you must adopt complete noise discipline. This isn't just about you staying quiet. This is about ensuring your group understands the stakes. If your child cries, or if your supply runner drops a crate, it is not a mistake. It is a casualty event. You need to pad your gear with cloth, tape down metal zippers. Your existence must be quieter than the wind. If you cannot be silent, you must be distant. Sound is the primary vector. Master it, or it will ring the bell for your execution. Let's move to the second column in your log. Sight. You are moving through a rail yard. The sun is high. A walker spots you from 50 yards out. It doesn't scream, it just locks on. Its head tracks you like a security camera. You step behind a cargo container. The walker doesn't stop, it moves to your last known position. This tells us something critical about their cognitive mapping. They possess object permanence, the understanding that things still exist when they are unseen. However, their vision is likely based on movement and contrast. They are predators of opportunity. If you run across an open field, you are a high-contrast target. You are a silhouette of life against a background of death. Here is where the guilt sets in. You might be able to stay low and move slow. You know how to break your silhouette. But can you make your family do it? Can you stop your terrified spouse from sprinting when they see a corpse walking toward them? The instinct to flee is what gets people killed. Sight triggers the chase reflex. If you run, you are prey. If you freeze, you are simply terrain. You have to train your group to embrace the shadow. Darkness is not your enemy anymore. It is your camouflage. When a herd moves past your hiding spot, the natural human urge is to recoil, to flinch. That movement is what kills you. You must remain statue still while your children look to you, eyes wide with terror, pleading for you to do something. And you must do nothing. You must hold that gaze and force them to freeze, or you all die. There is a pervasive myth in zombie theory that the infected gain enhanced night vision. Let's debunk that immediately. The virus or pathogen reanimates the host. It does not mutate the structure of the eye, rods and cones in 3 weeks. They see what we see. If it is pitch black, they are blind. This is your advantage. However, remember that they don't need light to navigate the same way you do, because they don't fear tripping. They will stumble through the dark relentlessly. Your flashlight, however, is a beacon. Using a flashlight in a dark city is the visual equivalent of screaming. It cuts through the dark and points a straight line back to your location. You must learn to navigate by moonlight. If you light a flare, you are signalling every dead thing in the zip code. The operational rule for sight is break the line. If you are spotted, you do not run in a straight line. You turn a corner, then immediately turn another. You must sever the visual tether. Once the zombie loses visual contact, it reverts to its secondary senses, sound and smell. If you are silent and out of sight, it will eventually lose interest or be distracted by a drifting leaf. Your goal is to become uninteresting. In a world of monsters, the boring man survives. Wear grey, wear dirt. Look like the rubble you are hiding in. Do not look like food. Now, the most insidious sense. Smell. The city reeks of decay, sewer failure, and death. You would think this masks your scent. It doesn't. It highlights it. The smell of the living, sweat, soap, laundry detergent, and fresh blood, cuts through the stench of rot like a laser. Imagine you scrape your arm climbing a fence. It's a minor injury. In the old world, you'd put a band-aid on it. Now, you are leaking a pheromone signal into the air. Fresh blood calls them from further away than a shout. It triggers a frenzied, primal hunger state in the infected. They can smell the iron in the air. This introduces a variable most survivors ignore until it is too late. Wind direction. Hunters understand this. Urbanites do not. If the wind is blowing from you toward the horde, you are broadcasting your location. You could be perfectly silent and hidden in deep shadow, but if the breeze carries your scent, they will come. They won't know exactly where you are, but they will know you are there. They will begin to tighten the circle. You need to start checking the wind before you step out the door. Wet your finger. Watch the debris. Always move upwind of the threat. If you are downwind, you are already being tracked. This leads to a difficult logistical choice, the hygiene paradox. We are taught that cleanliness prevents infection, but in this scenario, smelling like clean rain shampoo is a death sentence. It is an artificial scent that does not exist in nature. To a zombie, you smell like a chemical anomaly. Survivors in week 3 need to stop trying to smell good. You need to smell like the environment. Smoke, grease, and grime are your friends. However, we must balance this against the risk of bacterial infection in wounds. You must keep your body clean enough to avoid sepsis, but your outer layers should smell like the ruins. Do not wash your field jacket. Let it accumulate the scent of the city. You are camouflaging your biology. Here is the brutal truth about blood. If someone in your group is bleeding, they are a liability. That is a harsh sentence to say out loud, but the equation is cold. A menstruating woman, a child with a nosebleed, a man with a jagged cut. They are broadcasting a signal. You cannot simply wrap a rag around it. You need to seal the scent. Duct tape over bandages, plastic wrap. You need to contain the biological leak. If you don't, you are endangering everyone in the safe house. When you look at your injured friend, you have to realize that to the things outside, he is no longer a person. He is an open buffet. You protect him by masking him, or you put distance between him and the group. Let's turn the page to physiology, speed and stamina. In week 1, the fresh turns were fast. The muscles were oxygenated, the tendons intact. They could run. Now, in week 3, rigor mortis has come and gone, but the degradation is setting in. They are slowing down. But do not mistake slowness for weakness. The fresh zombies move with a frantic, jerky speed. The older ones shamble. But the one thing they share is infinite stamina. They do not breathe heavy. They do not get a stitch in their side. They do not sleep. They just pursue. It is the tortoise and the hare, but the tortoise wants to eat the hare alive. Steelman argument time. This violates the laws of thermodynamics. They can't move forever without energy input. Correct, they cannot. They are burning a fuel source they cannot replace. They are consuming their own muscle mass and fat reserves to power their motion. They are rotting engines. Eventually, they will stop. But eventually might be 6 months from now. You cannot wait them out in a closet. In the short term, their stamina is functionally endless compared to yours. You need water, food, and sleep every 24 hours. They need nothing. If you try to outwalk a herd, you will collapse from exhaustion, while they are still taking one step after another. You cannot win a war of attrition against an enemy that doesn't feel fatigue. You must learn to classify the threat based on gait. If you see a zombie moving with fluid motions, knees bending properly, it is a fresh turn. It likely died within 48 hours. Avoid it at all costs. It can sprint, it can climb. If you see a zombie dragging a foot with stiff, locking joints, it is an old rot. You can outmaneuver it, but be careful. The old rots are often the shield wall for the fresh turns behind them. It is a mixed unit tactic, unintended but effective. You knock down the slow one and the fast one vaults over it to tackle you. Always scan the pack for the sprinters. Take them out first, or you won't live long enough to worry about the shamblers. Survival is now an economy of calories. Since they don't tire, you must conserve every ounce of your own energy. Never run if you can walk. Never walk if you can stand. Never stand if you can sit. You are a battery with a leak. If you sprint for 3 blocks to escape a threat that you could have evaded by walking quietly, you have wasted precious energy that you cannot replace with a scavenged candy bar. Panic is expensive. Calm is efficient. The survivors who make it to year 1 are the ones who treat their own energy levels like a fuel gauge in a car. Don't drive in the red. Mapping the city requires understanding clustering. You look at the map. You see the hospital, the train station, the shopping mall. In the old world, these were resources. In week 3, they are black holes. Why? Because that's where everyone went when the panic started. The sick went to the hospital. The commuters went to the station. The looters went to the mall. They all died there. And now the zombies simply stay. They don't commute. Unless drawn away by sound, they idle in these high-density zones. A hospital isn't a place to get medicine anymore. It is a standing army of the infected, wearing scrubs and carrying the keys to the pharmacy in pockets you can't reach. Zombies exhibit a behaviour known as passive herding. One zombie bumps into a door. Another hears it and follows. A third follows the second. Soon you have a density blockage. They clog exits. They fill hallways. If you enter a high-density zone, like a mall, you are entering a labyrinth where the walls are made of biting mouths. The danger isn't just fighting them, it's the geometry. You cannot swing a weapon in a crush. You cannot aim a rifle when they are pressing against you from all sides. These clusters are static until disturbed. If you disturb a cluster in a confined space, like a subway station, you trigger a hydraulic pressure of bodies. You will be crushed before you are bitten. My rule for week 3 is the rule of 12. If I look down a street and see fewer than 12 zombies, I can calculate a path through. I can distract 3, kill 2, and evade the rest. But if I see more than 12, I withdraw. 12 is the tipping point where individual skirmishes turn into a swarm event. You cannot manage the vectors of attack from more than a dozen hostiles simultaneously. Your brain cannot process the threats fast enough. If you see a cluster, do not try to be a hero. Do not try to thin the herd. You back away slowly, check your 6, and find another route. There is no shame in retreating. Retreating is a survival strategy. Fighting is a failure of planning. So how do you move? You use the rat runs. You avoid the main avenues and the hubs. You travel through the veins of the city, not the arteries. Alleys with fire escapes, connected rooftops, fenced backyards. You want narrow channels where you can bottleneck pursuers, but not so narrow that you get boxed in. You need verticality. Zombies are terrible climbers. A route that requires pulling yourself up a ledge is 90% safer than a sidewalk. Start thinking like an urban explorer. The lobby is death. The service ladder is life. Map these routes. Memorize them. If you get chased, you need to know exactly which dumpster allows you to vault onto the garage roof. Secondary threats. We have talked about the dead. Now let's talk about the dying. In week 3, you will encounter other survivors. They will be desperate. They will be begging for entry to your safe house. And some of them will be lying. The hidden bite is the Trojan Horse of the apocalypse. A father has been bitten on the ribs. He knows he is dead, but he wants to get his wife and child inside your walls before he turns. So he buttons his jacket. He hides the sweat. He looks you in the eye and swears he is clean. If you let him in out of pity, he will turn in the middle of the night. He will eat your supply officer. He will infect your medic. Pity is a vulnerability. This requires a protocol that makes us lose a piece of our humanity to save the rest. The strip search. No one enters the perimeter without a full body inspection. No exceptions for modesty. No exceptions for children. You have to check for lacerations, bite marks, and the telltale blackening of veins. It is dehumanizing. It is cruel. And it is absolutely necessary. You cannot trust their word. The virus doesn't care about their honesty. If you are not willing to enforce this boundary, if you are too polite to ask a stranger to lift their shirt, then do not open the door. You are better off alone than with a ticking time bomb sleeping on the cot next to you. Then there are the ones who aren't bitten, but are just as dangerous. Looters. In week 3, the amateur looters are gone. The ones left are the organised gangs. They use the zombies as a weapon. They will fire a shot at your building to draw the herd to your door, forcing you out so they can take your supplies. They use the chaos to dominate. They understand the zombie science too, and they weaponize it. You are not just defending against the dead, you are defending against the living who have lost their moral compass. Your defences need to be designed for both. A barricade that stops a zombie might not stop a man with a crowbar. You need layered security. Finally, the most chaotic variable: fire. A building burns 2 blocks away. The zombies walk into it. They don't feel pain. They catch fire. And then they keep walking. Now you have a walking fire hazard. A flaming zombie stumbling into your safe house isn't just an infection risk. It is an arson event. They can set your barricades alight. They can burn down your entire block simply by wandering through it. Fire discipline is critical. If you see a fire, you must assume it is mobile. You need sand buckets, extinguishers, and escape routes that don't rely on wooden staircases. A zombie apocalypse is bad. A zombie apocalypse while your shelter is burning down around you is the end. We have filled the pages of the log. Sound, sight, smell. Speed, stamina, clustering. Hidden bites and moving fire. This data is what separates the survivors from the casualties. The panic of week 1 is over. You are now in the long grind. Survival is no longer an act of bravery. It is an act of intellect. It is about outthinking a creature that cannot think. It is about suppressing your human instincts to run and scream, and replacing them with the cold, hard logic of the predator. You are analysing the variables. You are mitigating the risks. You are adapting. Look at your hands. Look at the people breathing next to you. They are alive because you made the right choices. But the test isn't over. Week 4 brings new variables. Starvation, cold, depression. The zombies are just the environment now. The The real challenge is maintaining the will to keep going when the world remains silent. Do not let the silence break you. Fill it with plans. Fill it with training. Fill it with the certainty that as long as you can observe, analyze, and adapt, you are the apex predator. The notebook is your lifeline. But a notebook cannot stop a bullet, and it cannot filter water. We have mapped the enemy. Next, we must map the cure for thirst and the architecture of a fortress. The curriculum continues, the test is daily, and the only passing grade is waking up tomorrow. Study the log. Watch the shadows. Stay quiet. You survived the simulation. Now survive the reality. Equip yourself at the official supply depot. Because if the world is going to end, you might as well look prepared.